And everyone's friend, Robert Murphy, neurodiversity guy, said that he had the same problem. And what he did was he trained himself to use his left hand to do his mousing. It was really awkward for the first month or so, but we are now in vacation time. It's a good time to force yourself to learn to mouse with your left hand, and also to learn to trackpad. I have both a mouse and a trackpad, and they use slightly different movements. And if you can use them both on both hands, you can take breaks in between. When you start developing pain in one, don't stop and just use the other hand, because you start developing pain and you keep going, you're going to stress that arm out, and it's going to be like 3 months until you can use it again properly. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. I've got a comment.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I went to the doctor. I had exactly the same as Charlie. This tendon here ripped out, and I got this really painful tendonitis, which I still have. Charlie, if you go to the doctor, they'll give you the most painful injection you've ever had in your life, but it really works. You'll be like cured within 5 minutes, but you do have to take care of it. And the exercise the doctors recommend is to get your hands like this, and then just stretch really, and stretch down like this. And you're trying to get the stretch in here it's this bit here that you need to, this bit of your hand right here, which is where the pain is coming from. So you need to make sure that you stretch that right out. So just to give you all a laugh, what I did about that was I got an ergonomic keyboard. I'll show you it. How about this thing? Can you see that? So I'm kind of busily teaching myself to type over again. I'm doing typing.com every day. How do you get on with the 6-7 key and the brackets there, Steve? Yeah, I'm not sure if I recommend one of these or not, but I'm giving that a try. That's my comment.
Yeah, Jane, please go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, I've been going to having physio and treatment on my right hand and wrist since March, as soon as ERT was decided, within a week. Go to physio, go to an orthopod clinic. It's 330 yen for a training session. It's 750 yen or about for a physio session. And I've had 2 of those jabs. I think it might depend on the doctor. Mine weren't that painful. So Neil, maybe you should find a doc who's better at giving jabs. And regards to sort of ergonomic and looking after yourself, I have an exercise ball in my bedroom. And if I send the students into the breakout rooms, I just go next door and literally lie back over the exercise ball to stretch out my back totally. And another one here, I've got, this is my ergonomic mouse, that it's a bit expensive, but I strongly recommend. So ergonomic mouse in one hand and a trackpad in another. Good luck everybody for next semester. Thanks.
Yeah, this is good. There's a lot. One of mine is, well, I've got this thing which looks like kind of obscene, but that's a good stretcher. That gets the chest and like the shoulders sort of open up. But I was going to just say, like, one of the things I'm sort of programming into my week is, like, I mean, just close to daily exercise. If you, like, I'm putting it in, it's non-negotiable, at least 30 minutes of just moving. I got some light weights at home. I got a bench. I got this and that. But I mean, that's part of my day. It's not negotiable. Can't live without it. You just can't. Jose, you had something more to add.
Another thing, because if you notice trackpads or keyboards, they're supposed to sit at a slant, and that was a mimicry of the original typewriter keys on mechanical typewriters that were designed at a slope so that they could be easily seen. But that is incredibly bad for your wrists. And what is better is actually getting your wrist down here. You can even feel it. If you just do this, how much more relaxed they would be if they were actually over here, but then you can't see the keys. What you can do in that sense is get your wrist elevated, get them to the point so that then they're actually above the trackpad. You can get these wrist rests, which will just come right about here. Get your wrist from that slanting position up. And I actually use 2 because I need my wrist up even higher because of my original carpal tunnel problem. The new Macintosh keyboards are way flatter than the old ones. And when I had to replace my keyboard, I was so happy to see that they had designed these things to be much flatter, and the new trackpads will be flatter. Got to get that wrist above your fingers. However that will work. That also too will help with a lot of things.
Where'd you get that wrist rest? Where'd you buy that?
10 years old, so it would have been Yamada, or you can find them with the mouse pads. People still buy mouse pads, and you can take like a pillow. You can take like a pillow. You can take like, I don't know, something and put a cloth over it. Anything that your wrist can rest on, so that it's above your, or it's as close to being above your knuckles as you possibly can. Right? I was actually thinking about maybe making a special kind of arm thing out of wood, where my from my elbow to my wrist was higher than my fingers. Because on a keyboard, you got to see the keys. There's nothing you can do about that. But on a mouse, you're not looking at the trackpad while you're mousing.
Bill, go ahead, Bill. Haven't heard from you. Oh, can't hear you, Bill.
As a co-host, I don't have a raised hand. I can't raise my hand.
Oh, right. Okay. I'll have to watch for you then. Okay, go ahead.
So I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the ergonomic keyboards, they're fantastic. I'm really trying to find a good one. I like the way they work. I think if people really should be able to touch type without seeing the keyboard, I think if you can't do that, I think you need to train to learn how to do that, so you really don't have to look at the keys. I think that really helps your neck from looking down and looking up. And right.
Paul, please.
Yes, I wanted to second remarks that Jose made about being ambidextrous or working on it and using both a trackpad and a mouse. I use both every day and usually switch them from right to left and left to right every other day. And they're at a level that is not only down from the wrist, but down from the elbow. I do that by setting the keyboard and the mouse and the trackpad on a drawer pulled out from the desk. So it's about 2-3 inches lower than the desktop itself. And it works really good to not only de-stress the wrists and elbows, but also helps a little bit with the shoulders with that down angle from the elbows.
Man, these are great. Any more? This is the real deal for me. Like, this is where it hurts, you know. Paul Shimiz has got one.
I've never learned to touch type, and I'm absolutely useless, and I make so many mistakes. So what I do now is I write by hand and then take a photo of the page. So I'm using the old-fashioned method and modern technology, and then dump it into a not a word processor, a desktop publishing thing, and then make a PDF of the whole thing and send handwritten mails to people. But that's I like that. I enjoy handwriting because I find it kind of therapeutic as well. But I can't.
Maybe your computer could recognize your handwriting and put it into normal letters, like typing.
Where is it? Well, I'll just show you. I'm not sure it's going to be able to recognize all this stuff that I write. It's pretty rough, but I do a lot of writing, especially with this shutdown. So although I've been a bit off lately, I've just kind of lost my momentum because it's so depressing, really. It just seems like never-ending story. We all thought it was going to be over in, what, 3 months, 4 months, and everyone's going to be back to, and it's, well, it's a disaster, isn't it? Economic disaster, educational disaster, personal disaster.
Chin up, up.
Well, I'm kind of personally, it's not too bad for me, especially being an old man. But thinking about the young people, the pieces that they've got to pick up, it's just quite phenomenal, really. But hey, yes, Neil.
I'm with Paul on that one. I think it's a complete disaster, and I really feel sorry for the first and second year university students that I'm dealing with, because, you know, I don't see how they're going to recover from this gap in their education. And it is a gap. Anybody who thinks that what we're doing now is better must be out of their minds. It's just too bad, is the way I see it. I'm done.
Yeah. Tim Pritchard, please.
Hello, good morning. I just wanted to say I got a pain in my wrist after about a month, and I found changing the seat, the level of your seat, and the best advice was you got to have all your feet flat on the floor, and basically all your joints about 40 degrees. For example, your knees should be 90 degrees, not 40 degrees. 90 degrees. So basically you've got to sit properly. And so to do that, I had to make my seat higher, and I put books under my keyboard. And your wrist, ideally you shouldn't rest it on anything. Your wrist should be just straight. When you end up going either up or down and then sideways as well, some people have their elbows out, and then that makes you end up, your wrist basically should be going straight from your arm, and that solved my problems. So I'm also getting exercise, standing up every 20 minutes. Can't really do it sometimes, but I've got when I'm working, not in a class, I got an app, Pomodoro, something from a QSAN part-time teacher recommended it. And you can just set your own stopwatch, of course, but this just tells you take a break, and then you can set it 5-minute break. Or that was very helpful. So now my wrist is okay. So I don't know if that helped, but it helped me anyway.
Yeah, I've got an app that I've set it to, I think it's every 20 minutes, it will sort of gray out the screen for 30 seconds. And that's just when I just do this, I just move my head around, 30 seconds and I'm back. And every maybe 6 or 7 minutes, it just does a little ding ding, and that reminds me to sit up straighter and take a deep breath. It's great. And the days I forget to do that or forget to turn it on, it's like, oh, that's why I'm stiff at the end of the day. But just that little thing. In fact, I used it a lot when I had a long project I did a couple of years back. I used that so often and so well that when I finished my project, my neck started to sort of stiffen up because it wasn't getting its regular 20 minutes of movement all the time. Jose is up.
Sorry, everyone. Also, don't forget that at least if you have a Macintosh, and I think there are similar pieces of software for Windows. Can I share my screen, Steve? Steve, can I share my screen? Oh, you're muted. Okay, so that's okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just looking at that option down here. Share screen. Hang on. Here we are. Yes. Okay. There you go. You can now.
This is just a word process as a whiteboard when I teach. And yeah, I have a better mic, but it doesn't really matter. And what I do is on my Mac, I tap my function key twice. And you can get by with basically saying what you really want to into the computer, full stop. This is actually going to help you a lot if you learn how to actually control your sentences in a different way than you do when you're talking, full stop. You have to learn how to say your punctuation, comma. You have to say what it is that you really want to all the way to the very end, full stop.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. And I don't exactly know how to do that on Windows. Some other people here who might have Windows can know that. But on a Macintosh, it has saved me, especially during that carpal tunnel situation, saved me a lot. It saves me when I just have to do stuff while I'm messaging with somebody, and we can't just have a voice conversation. But yeah, keep that in mind. That's pretty cool, I think.
Jose, what was the function on the Mac?
Okay, let me show you again. There's a few different ways to do it, but on the Macintosh, you go to accessibility. It's either accessibility or keyboard or a combination of both, and also dictation. It's a whole bunch of. I would have to look in there, Michael. But you go to System Preferences, and between accessibility, keyboard, and dictation. Now I realize mostly dictation. You can tell the computer what you want. On mine, it's a double tap on function, which is a very unique keystroke. There's no way you can mistake that. Double tap on function to start, and either any keystroke to end, or a single tap on function during dictation to end.
Yeah. Right on. All right, I just wanted to let everybody know, I thought this was set to record automatically, but it wasn't, so we've lost the first 10 minutes. It's recording now. It's recording the video. So anyway, you guys are here. I should be apologizing to the people who are going to watch this later, right? But anyway. All right, anybody, I think we've done our dash on ergonomics. I mean, we could go on for hours on that because there's so many good ideas. But, oh yes, and the other point I was going to make, I will be saving the chat. I think I forgot to do that last time. So I will save the chat and post that so we can get all these links. If you do have any link you want to post in the chat, it will be saved and I will post that somewhere. Neil is waving. Neil, you want to say something?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was busy last time, but I did watch the video yesterday. I watched it, but it was really a problem that many of the links that people were referring to were not visible on the video. I wonder if you could find a way to post some of those links. Or,
oh, I will. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, that's something I stuffed up last time. I just forgot to. Yeah, I just forgot to save the chat as a text. I'm sure that there is a good way to. Oh yeah, I can see a button that says file actually. So I will be saving it as a file. So it will be saved. So go ahead and add links, everybody. That's a good idea. Good way to get ideas to everybody. Cool. All right. Well, shall we open up the floor? I've got things I can say, but I don't want to dominate here. But has anybody got anything to suggest? Anything to ask? Open floor. Shirley has a hand up. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Charlie, I missed you. I'll come back to you, Charlie, later. Shirley, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm on my iPad, which I don't usually use for Zoom, so it's got less functionality. I'm really sorry I wasn't at the first meeting, and I'm just wondering if I could have just a couple of minutes to do a quick review on how the semester worked for me, and I'll include a couple of things that I'm going to incorporate into my new semester. Is that reasonable? Okay, thank you. So firstly, I'd just like to say that I started, before the semester started, I was already familiar with Moodle and my students used Moodle. I'm teaching at a university, for those who don't know me, and I'm teaching first year students that are doing a compulsory course. I had about 70 and, no, sorry, I had about 60. And then I'm teaching second, third and fourth years, which are elective classes. And I had, I think, about 60 students over 3 classes. So they were already familiar with Moodle. Zoom was new to them, and the feedback I got on the first lesson was that they had all been really anxious about it. Before they actually came to the first lesson, I had sent out a message to them saying, go online, watch some tutorials, get yourself familiar with Zoom. That's your responsibility. You need to be able to use it when you arrive in my first class. They were all nervous, but by the end of the class, they said, oh yeah, it's really easy. So that wasn't a problem. And I didn't actually change any of my assessment. I felt that I could do my regular assessment, all of my regular assessment via the sort of apps that I was using. One thing I did do was I set up a wiki in Moodle for students to exchange information about how to do things on Zoom that I couldn't explain very well in Japanese. My Japanese is not very good. It wasn't particularly successful, mainly because Japanese students really not very good at taking the initiative to do something. I had one Korean student who was fantastic. She actually put a couple of things up. She put links in. The first week I actually set homework saying you have to put something into the wiki. So a couple of them did, but it didn't really take off as a good technique for having them exchange ideas throughout the semester. So then we got into the semester and I was essentially using Zoom and Moodle, which I always use anyway. And the other thing was that I've noticed when Jose was screen sharing is that also in my regular classes, I use my iPad a lot. So I would very often flip between Zoom after I did activities with students and then use apps. So I've got a really nice whiteboard app function that I like to use, and we watch movies and all sorts of things. So it was very convenient for me to just flip over to my iPad and actually use that for the screen. So after the first week, I tried to get some feedback from students. They said Zoom was easy. As the semester went on, I discovered that my students were talking in English more than they would usually talk, which surprised me. They were also doing more homework than they would normally do, also surprising, but I was very happy with. And when I asked them about it, most of them said that they couldn't really articulate it, especially with regard to the speaking, but they felt less self-conscious for some reason. I think, I don't know, sitting on their own in the room. Of course, in the big class, they weren't sort of talking much, but when I put them into small rooms, about 50% of the time when I dropped into a breakout room, they would be actually speaking in English, which kind of blew me away because I wouldn't get that sort of percentage of good response in an actual classroom. So one other reason I think it's quite successful is that in a regular classroom, if I've got 25, 30 students and I split them into groups of 4, it's extremely noisy. So that even if I'm sitting with a group and trying to focus on them, I'm also listening to other groups. I'm sort of commenting on them as I go along. And there's just a lot of chaotic sound. Whereas I think that in the Zoom breakout rooms, because it's quiet, they actually can hear each other. It's just a calmer and quieter environment for them to be having a conversation in. And I like the fact that I could flip them around from room to room pretty quickly as well. So in terms of efficiency, for me, it was more efficient in terms of mixing up groups. I didn't, you don't have to have students standing up. It takes them 10 minutes between a 5-minute session to actually move from chairs and whatever. So there was, for me, a lot of positive things in terms of efficiency. Students also said that they were doing more homework because they didn't have the commute, and they volunteered that information as being a positive thing. So pretty much the only negative feedback I got was a couple of students said that they didn't feel like they could assess the people that they were interacting with. And I basically told them that I think this is a skill that they need to work on because this is going to be their future, and they really do need to develop skills with regard to how to communicate online. And the other interesting thing was that, so the other thing I'm going to comment on is socializing. So this seemed to be the biggest problem in terms of students feeling the loss and the negativity in distance learning, because my students generally were all pretty positive, even the first year students, which for whom it was the hardest because they never actually got to meet each other at all. They didn't have established friendships. So I they were in small rooms that I was usually giving them a task to do. So what I'm going to do in this following semester is, in every class, at some point throughout the class, I'm going to give them 15 minutes to choose whatever breakout room they want to be in, with no agenda. They don't have to speak English. They don't have to do anything related to my class. It's just socializing time, so that they can talk to whoever they want to talk to with their friends and talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. Because that seems to be the hardest thing for them, is this lack of connectedness with friends or potential friends. So most of, actually all of my students, in the first week that I had them on Zoom, they said, one, this was the first time they had spoken to their teacher, any teacher, and two, it was the first time for most of them to actually see any of their other classmates. So they hadn't had any of that opportunity. So I think it's, for me, it's quite important that they actually have a chance with no agenda of mine to just hang out with each other a little bit and get to know each other. And I haven't looked into this yet, but I'm hoping I can set it up so that they can actually choose whichever Zoom room, whichever breakout room they want to go to, and hang out with whoever they want to go to. Neil's giving me a head shake there.
Yeah, you can do that on Cisco training, but not Zoom, as I understand it. Within Cisco trainings, participants can choose the room that they want to go to, but not Zoom, I think.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, I know that you can pre-assign, Jane. So probably on the day, I'll just say who wants to be where, and I'll just slot them through. I'm not too worried about the logistics of it, just that they actually get that time. The one other thing that I did that was not entirely successful last semester, but I think it's going to be better this semester, and that was new for me, was to use the testing in Moodle. So I hadn't used the quiz function before. I had used the assignments function before, but so the two things that were in my regular assessment, which is a continuous assessment, were vocabulary tests and listening tests. And I didn't want to lose them, but I did struggle with how to do them in a way that they couldn't really cheat so much. So in the end, I used the quiz function. I used about 4 different types of question type. I set a very narrow time limit. So for a 30-minute test, I set them 25 minutes with the expectation that most of them wouldn't finish. But I wanted them to to be pressed for time, just so that they didn't have time to be checking dictionaries or whatever. And the other thing is that although I have about 60 students in my class, I actually manage a course of about 200. There are another 3 teachers that work with me. So the testing was for all of them. So the one good thing that came out of it was that by the second test, I had chosen the question types that would allow for automatic marking for the entire test. So that was great for the part-time teachers because they didn't have to grade. Normally it'd be an hour and a half's grading per class per test. So now all of the grading's done automatically, and I'm going to keep that when if we ever eventually get back to normalized classes. There were lots of problems with the testing because of the rendering of tests and students being not familiar with how to do them. I did set up a practice test, but not everybody did it. So just better prepared this semester with regard to setting up those tests, but I think they're going to work. And the other thing is I had them all sign into their Zoom class before they started the test, and I insisted that they have their videos on. I mean, of course they could still be cheating, but if the earnestness of their faces was any indication, they did all seem to be just focusing on the test, and there didn't seem to be a lot of cheating going on. I did try to work out as much as possible how to construct tests or questions that were open book friendly questions so that I didn't have to worry about cheating. But for a vocab test, that's, if anybody's got any suggestions, great, because I found that to be pretty hard to do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I have to say, overall, I had a really, really good experience. So I didn't consider it a disaster. And there are some things that I would carry over into my regular classes when we get them. But I think the most profound challenge was students being able to connect with other students.
Yep.
So they all want to get back to university, but not to study. They want to get back to see their friends.
Cool. Thanks,
Yeah,
Shirley.
Can I jump
Great.
in?
Jane, yeah, Jane.
Thanks. I think a lot of people were using Moodle quizzes for the first time, if not Moodle for the first time. I did in the first week an orientation session and a self-introduction. And then I gave students an orientation test, including all the different types of Moodle questions.
Right.
And I gave them 3 chances to test. It had no time limit. The object was for them to learn a bit about me, learn a bit about the testing system on Moodle. They didn't realize initially they could keep taking, I think I said it for 3 times. So I mailed them and said, look, you can take the test 3 times, try again, figure out how to do the questions. And after that, there weren't that many problems. The only problems I had was Moodle crashing.
Right.
And that's why I started just doing short tests, 10-minute maximum, except for the final reading, writing test. Anything else was 10-minute maximum to try to overcome the problem of Moodle. And 2 things when you're making quizzes on Moodle, you can import certain types of questions from Word, for example, multiple choice. And if you're using Quizlet, you can import vocabularies from Quizlet. So basically just ways to save time. Once you've got a set of tests up, the test bank, what you might want to do is just randomly assign, say, a few weeks into the course for vocabulary, you could just randomly assign questions from your quiz bank just to see if students have actually picked up what they're learning. Because obviously, like, doing a unit a week is very methodical and probably what you wrote in your syllabus. But students, if you really want to check their learning, you should just throw in some random questions now and again.
Right, okay. Thank you, Jane. Actually, they only do 2 tests a semester. So in fact, for me, it'd probably be more effective to maybe reduce the time on the test and toss in more tests, perhaps.
Maybe also that allowed me to spot problem students by doing sort of a couple of tests each week.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got input to give about Moodle. Similarly to Shirley, I've been using it for some time, but I was not particularly familiar with the various different kinds of assignment and so on that are available. And so I set out at the start of the semester to learn that. I found 3 things to be useful. One is short tests. One is assignments. It's called quizzes in English, sorry, quizzes, short testo in Japanese. Assignments, which is like kadai. And the other is forums. I started off, I had 365 students enrolled on my courses this semester, which is a lot. And similarly to somebody that was speaking last week, our requirement is to do like a 50-minute lesson and then give work to the students to be 90 minutes worth. And they're actually questioned on that, whether the teachers are giving them enough work or not. So the goal for us is not so much to test the students, but to give them coursework, which we can then grade. So I started off using assignments, which I've been using for a long time, and it sounds like Shirley's pretty familiar with that. Is Shirley still here? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And then I went to short tests, the quizzes, because they go into the grade book automatically. You don't need to grade them. And as you say, you can let the students take them as many times as you like, so they can keep doing them. I found that pretty unsatisfactory, mainly because the automatic function of it also means that you can only have one answer. So, you know, the kind of test is really limited, and I want to say CRAP, because they're really not going to fulfill the requirement to be work for 20 minutes or 30 minutes for the students to show that they've understood the lesson, which is what we're required to do. So this is where I'm coming from. I gave up testing students many years ago. I don't bother testing students anymore. I just don't do that. But what I found was really, really useful to me, and I discovered this about halfway through the semester, is forums in Moodle. And what you can do is you just like put a forum into your lesson and ask the students, please comment, give them a word guide, 100 words or something, or 150 words. I would suggest 300 even for English majors, and say, please comment on the whatever it was you used in your lesson, you know, the video, please comment on the materials, and, you know, give them some kind of deadline, which you don't really need to be strict about this. But I got this, you know, I got an incredible response from even economics majors and law majors writing very reflective comments about the lesson materials every week. And that's the one thing that I really, really learned, was just to use forums in Moodle to ask the students to give me feedback of their impression of the materials. That
Neil, the forum in Moodle, is that the one where the students can see each other's writings as well?
Okay.
Or is it...
So then you get to the issue of commenting. There is one way to set that up that's called question and answer, and I would strongly recommend you don't bother with that one, because it's really complicated for the person to use it. I was just using it yesterday and I looked at it and I gave up again, because I was like, how am I going to explain to the students how to use this? So anyway, what I've been using is the most simple one, where students can see the previous postings. But to tell the truth, copying has been very much not an issue. It's not a problem. One point is that the comments come with a timestamp and they're in order. So if you see one of the students has written something the same as another student, you know which one of them copied, and you just slam them. So, I mean, I grade one of the really good things about forums is you can grade it really fast. You can go through a whole class in about 10, you know, less than 10 minutes. I grade out of 5. I give, you know, 4 as an average grade. If I see one that's really good, I give a 5. If I see one that's they've been copying a bit, or if it's too short, I give a 3. If the student didn't submit, they get a 0. That's the real difference. That's where you can make your grades, because you can see whether the students are engaging with the course. And that's the important thing. I don't think it's really a problem if they copy a bit. At least they're still engaging with the course. So you give that a 3 rather than, you know, you wouldn't give a 5 to one that looks like it's been copied. But the difference between giving 4 or 3 versus a 0 is big. And if you do 12 assignments across a course, 1 per class, that gives you ABC, you're done. So I found that to be not only really, really an excellent activity for the students, where I was seeing reflective comments, which is what we're looking for. It helped, you know, it made my grades. So I would really, really recommend forums to everybody.
Thanks, Neil. Let's go back. Shirley, you wanted to say something about that, and then can I suggest that we go to a different topic than Moodle, just in case some people are not using Moodle anyway. So let's just let's go to you, Shirley, to wrap up about Moodle.
Yeah. Just very quick comment on what Neil said, and to answer Sorrel's question, which was that, yeah, when you grade in Forum, it automatically gets transferred to the grade book. But I was just going to comment that, so within the forums, Forum is actually the mainstay of my Moodle course with my students, and for most of the reasons that Neil outlined. But within that, you can actually, there are various options with regard to what students can and cannot see. So Neil, I think it's actually not that difficult to set up the Q&A function, which means that students can't see other students' postings until they've made their own posting. So I actually use that with my first year students for their homework to try and stop them from copying. The other route I go is public humiliation, which is by maybe week 2, I just put it up on the big screen, all the postings, and it'll be like, oh, look, this is interesting. This person's got exactly the same mistakes as this person, and the timestamp says this. So no cheating. You got a 0, you got a 0, you got a 0. And doing that once pretty much gets rid of the problem usually, because they're aware that I actually am checking stuff like that. But yeah, I agree that forums is great for feedback. It gives students time. You can also choose how to view the responses, so by thread or just by straight chronological order and all of that stuff. So it's a really useful function. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. That's been good.
So
go, Neil.
My point about why Q&A is something I don't want to use is because it's really difficult it's not intuitive for the user. When you look at it as a student and you think, what am I supposed to do? It's not obvious. And explaining that looks really complicated to me. And I like things that are obvious. So Q&A didn't work for me.
Okay. I usually set up tasks in the initial post. So there's this very specific task, and part of the task is that they understand the instructions I've given them. So we're probably using it in a slightly different way, I think.
Cool. All right, it's been cool. I may actually do more with Moodle than I was going to. Jane, please head us in a different direction.
Okay, I'd love to know how people got their students to submit presentations or conversations, or if they did video or just audio. I'd really like to know what different methods people used, what worked and what didn't. Thank you.
You're talking about getting submissions coming in?
Yep, homework submissions.
Logically? Okay, well, a couple of answers went up there. So Bill, why don't you go?
I used Dropbox file request. So if you just Google Dropbox file request, it's very easy. You sign into your Dropbox online, you set up a file request. That means you get a link that you give to the students, and the students click on that link, and then they can upload a file to you, and it goes into your Dropbox, and you get a notification.
I actually did exactly the same, but with OneDrive.
Okay.
Yeah, that worked, but I'm just open to other ideas. But thanks, Bill.
Yeah. Very intuitive for the students too. They're just, yeah, it's very easy.
Thanks.
Jose, did you have a hand up there? It's come down.
I did, but my point is irrelevant now.
Okay,
it was something else. I didn't realize it was about homework. Sorry.
Okay, all right, Shirley, then go ahead.
I also ended up using Dropbox because I couldn't work out how to use FUbox at Fukuoka. I tried to share it, but then I realized, I think if you were using WebEx, which is the official system, your classes were automatically registered to a share folder. But if you were not, then I think you had to individually register all your students. But it was beyond me to actually work that out. But I'm hoping to get it sorted this semester so that instead of having to use my Dropbox, I can just use the file. But to extend the answer with regard to what Steve said, most of my students submitted their work other than their written Moodle homework, which would be a standard thing. They submitted things by MP4 file, and most of them chose to use Zoom, although I gave them quite a range of other options. And one of the other positive things that came out of my experience was that students demonstrated much more initiative than they would normally do in my regular classes. I think because even though I try not to, I actually do feed them a little bit, and I kind of pander to them a little bit because I'm worried they don't know how to do stuff. But I did pretty much take the line of, okay, this is what you need to do. This is the result I want. Work out how to do it. If you don't know how, go and research online, just like I do. And in most cases, they did. And I realized that I've been way overworking myself and underestimating them. And I think it was good to foster that particular skill with them. So a lot of them submitted Zoom videos that had little insets, and they had PowerPoints in the background, or they actually had the PowerPoint as the main thing and little insets. And a couple of them, when they did a presentation, I said, I want it to look professional. I said, if you were in my regular class, you'd be in a suit. I don't care if you've got your swimsuit down on the bottom, but put a suit and tie on top, and they did. So they actually submitted some really very good, because my courses focus on listening, speaking, they submitted some really good materials, mostly using Zoom.
Well, cool. Craig, new voice. Craig, Yamamoto, please.
Just to follow up on the presentation aspect, I actually had my students make PowerPoint presentations by putting them into breakout rooms, and they had to share their screen with their group to make their presentation. And for me to assess it, I actually required them to make a presentation recording. And then they uploaded that to Google Drive. And then I could watch their actual presentation myself to score it. And
So
that seemed to work quite well.
Using Zoom? That was using Zoom?
Yes, through Zoom. So they shared their screens with each other, and they made their presentation. But rather than them recording theirs, I actually had them record their voice onto their presentations. And then they shared those files with me through Google. I created a Google folder, a shared folder for them. And I could watch their videos, or sorry, their presentations with their voices recorded over it. And that worked quite well.
Cool. Anybody else? Or any questions? I've got questions about that, but I'd rather open it up. Shirley's got a question.
Sorry, just a quickie. Craig, I really like that idea. I'm actually planning to do more of that this semester. The other thing I did prior to the beginning of the semester was I had all of my students buy an A4 whiteboard just from the Hyakuin shop. So that actually was facilitated, especially at the beginning, facilitated better communication, because if they wanted to explain something quickly and they didn't have the words or whatever, they could just sketch it out quickly and put it up on the screen. This was before I had them using Zoom Whiteboard, which I don't particularly like. I think it's a bit clunky, but yeah, that having them sort of do those presentations in their breakout rooms and record them and post them to them, I think that's a really useful facility. So thanks for the extended ideas.
Yeah, Craig, can I ask about that? So when you say they record, it's more a Zoom question. They go into a breakout room and they have to record the video of the Zoom session themselves, or how does that work?
Well, actually, I originally wanted to do it that way, but then I realized that some students don't necessarily have a computer to do it properly. So what I did was I had them make a recording of their PowerPoint presentation with a voiceover. So if you go into PowerPoint and when you go to the slideshow option, there's an option to record a presentation. And then when they choose that, then they can actually record their voice while they're going through their slides.
Right.
So I had them, in a sense, they basically made their presentation twice, once for their group and once as a recording for me too.
Oh, okay. So it's for want of a better word, it was sort of asynchronous. They're presenting once for their class,
right,
and then they're presenting recording. Okay, right.
Again, I wanted to do it in Zoom, but because some of them don't have computers, I couldn't do it that way.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Bill, I see your hand, but Tim had hand up first.
Craig, question for Craig.
Okay, go. Yeah.
Oh. Can they do that in PowerPoint on their phones?
They should be able to. I don't know, really. It depends on what phone they have, and I guess if they actually have it on their phone.
Yeah, my students should. They have 365, right? So.
Well, I guess it depends, because I think 365, it depends on what they do with it. If they actually have a downloaded version of it, or if they're just using it online. Because if they're just using it online, I don't think they have the option.
Online's limited, right?
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, how about Tim now?
Yeah, I understand the pecking order. Ex-presidents get before treasurers. Bill's an ex-president.
Pecking order.
But yeah, I did the same as Craig, and I did actually manage to get them to record just the one time in breakout rooms. But the one girl didn't have, I work at women's university, so my lessons went pretty well. They all wanted to speak. But the students that can't record are ones on iPads or phones. And what I found is in a group of 4 or 3, just get them all to record everybody. So I made sure they press record once and then press record to stop at the end when everybody's finished. So then they all send in their recordings. So then that way, some people have technical trouble. I really needed their videos for the last assessment. But then one class was perfect, and another class, they didn't send them in. So it wasn't, yeah, I still didn't have.
So Tim, you got them in breakout rooms in Zoom, and you're asking each student to separately record the Zoom session, is that?
Yeah, so they all record it. They all managed to do that in one class. And you have to give them permission to record before they go into the breakout room. So if you forget, they all put their hand up. One time I forgot, well, a couple of times, and you'll get them putting their hand up, going, oh, help. And then, of course, you just bring them all back. Or you can go and visit their room and just click. It takes 2 seconds. So you can, usually I had an activity, I got them all in class in Zoom, and I gave them permission while they're doing something else. But then I uploaded, like Craig did, to Google Classroom G Drive, but I found one class didn't get the hang of it. I don't know why, so I need to maybe do it in Japanese, get some instructions. But maybe I could try Dropbox if that's easier. I'm not sure. But okay.
Cool. Good. Jose's got a hand up.
Taking the whole thing about assessment and how to get students' homework submission, eventually I had one university that had a very good Moodle install, and they could do file uploads up to 500 megabytes. One of my universities just simply didn't want us to put anything beyond 20 megabytes on Moodle. And working with these 2 various universities, I was thinking about a way to make a consistent sort of assignment. Plus, another factor, these kids, as others were saying just before, that they might not even have a computer. And overall, they're much more comfortable interfacing with their phones than they are with their computer. You will spend a lot of time trying to explain to them, you know, breakout rooms and then record buttons and stuff like that. But if you do as I did, Steve, I'm going to share one more time, okay? Oh, that's right, I can't share. We're recording. Sorry. I would show you what I would show you, except we're recording. And
Hang on. So we're recording the video of this, so it doesn't let you share? Is that right?
No, we're recording, so I don't want to show her face.
Oh, I see. I thought it was a Zoom.
No, it's not a Zoom thing. It's I remember that we're recording, and I don't have her permission to show anyone, and especially we're recording. If it was just professional peers, it wouldn't have been so bad, but we're recording. Anyway, I asked them to take selfie videos
You can pause recording.
Shall I? I could just pause recording, and sorry to the folks who aren't here, but yeah, let's do that. Let's pause the recording so we can.
Wouldn't have liked speaking in class, kind of like the idea of doing selfie videos, and over the semester they did get better. So I got to say, I think I liked that idea.
Yeah, I'd like to know more. It might be just something specific to me, and perhaps I should talk to you about it later, Jose. But I wonder if it's too big a topic to talk about. How did people who do presentations? How did you structure it across the semester? Because I just wonder, like, how many do you ask them to do? How long do you give them between presentations? What do you have them do when they're not presenting in class? That kind of thing. Is that too big a topic? Is there a short answer, Jose, that you could give to that? I don't want to take up too much time.
So every other week, I gave them, well, this class, yes, because they're an advanced class, but sometimes it's only every fourth week. Basically, I can combine it with VOA articles. I would tell them, read this one was a VOA article-based one. VOA articles are very easy to read because they're reduced vocabulary sets. And they would read the article, and it was on a topic. This time the topic was robots in the future. And then I would ask them to read that. But I thought, what if they just end up parroting a lot of what was said? So I gave them a question that wasn't answered through the VOA article, but forced them to use that information to do it. So robots in the future. My question was, do you think your children will be learning from robots? And just make them churn a little bit of an idea. Now with the lower level classes, I had them do that only for the practice test and the final test to give them another hill to climb. With really good students, in fact, really good students, be every week. But even with this class, it was every other week VOA plus a selfie video assigned to be done the next week, and then every other week, it was the fluency stuff that you and I do, Steve.
Yeah. I think I will talk to you about it later. I don't want to take up too much time if people are not looking for the same kind of thing. But I would like to do presentations in class. I've never done it in a little bit in a classroom class, but this seems like a great opportunity to kind of do that. But I wonder about structuring it across 15 weeks. Neil has a hand up.
Sorry, Neil, just because I think I have to go soon. I just wanted to say.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, Jose, please do give your plug about the OTJ sessions. Please do.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about it in just 1 second. And I think also presentations, instead of giving structured presentations that are doing PowerPoints and stuff, this requires all of the same skills plus alpha. And if they can do a walking video like this with gestures, with eye contact, they can do a PowerPoint presentation. Because I have to leave sooner than I thought I would, I wanted to promote, for those of you who know, Online Teaching Japan. If you look up Online Teaching Japan on Facebook, you will find a really healthy community of the sorts of discussions that you guys are doing here. And if you want to get more of this, go to Online Teaching Japan. You can get it every day. Mostly text-based. But this coming week, from Monday to Friday, we are populating an entire schedule of what can I say? Basically take these 2 hours and just splatter them over an entire week of sessions. Thank you, Bill. And that's not even the newest one. The newest one is, this is a 26 session schedule. We now have a 30 session schedule. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, with more and more people talking about all kinds of things, from homework to presentations to how to use new software to how they made software to ergonomics. We're going to be talking about that. All of these things. Please take a look at it. It's for free. You just have to join OTJ, and that's only because we need to be authorized so that we don't get Zoom bombers and other intruders into the sessions. Joining OTJ will actually be very handy for you because it's just this discussion writ large. So thank you very much for letting me plug that, Steve.
I'm going
to hang around for a few more minutes, but I'll probably be going. So thank you, everybody, if I don't get a chance to say goodbye later.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And therefore, we as Fukuoka JALT won't do anything next week because that's going to be going on and take care of that. Neil had a hand up, so I guess you want to say something about the presentation thing, Neil.
This is not. This is in answer to your question, Steve.
Okay.
But has nothing to do with online teaching. I'm going to talk about how I've been doing presentations in class over the past 10 years, really more than that. I do 4 presentations a semester with the students. And I teach them presentation skills. So that's a section of my course is actually presentation skills. And so they do, if they do a full year with me, they'll do 8 presentations over the year. And I get really incredible feedback from it. Lots of students say that they find it really useful and so on. But in answer to your question about how to schedule the students' work, what I've found over that 10 years and more is that the students like to schedule their work themselves. Basically, what I do is I just tell them, you will all be doing a presentation in this class on lesson date, and everybody does a presentation in the same class. And I let them choose partners, or I give them partners. Usually I try to let them choose, and that's it. That's after 10 years experience, as I've found is the best way to deal with it. The students will quite happily make appointments with each other outside of class, and they'll come with the thing practiced and really, you know, honed for the lesson, but they prefer to do that in their free time or in their own, under their own control of their schedule. So that's my input.
All right, cool. I would say, and Bill, is there something about presentations next week on the OTJ sessions? Is there anything on the schedule about that?
I gotta be honest with you, there are so many that I can't answer that definitively.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I'd be surprised if somebody who wasn't interested in presentations couldn't find something that could help them in that schedule. There is so much stuff there. I literally can't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah, I had a presentation class.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had to get ready to teach online in a very short amount of time. So I tried to just move forward the way I do it during regular classes but yeah, it really didn't work that well. You know, teaching them how to use presenter notes and, you know, presenting off of their own devices was really, really difficult. Some kids just said that they didn't have that capability. Others just, no matter, they just couldn't get it. I don't know why they couldn't do it. So half the time we just saw the presentation with the presentation notes beneath it, right? But at least they weren't filling up the slides with text. And usually when students are giving presentations, I'd give them a handout. That would be in the same random order of the kids giving presentations, with, you know, the numbers of the students giving the presentation, and maybe a question like which of the 3 topics did they choose: pet, hobby, or sport? Or what was the best thing they talked about? You know, when they say they give what was the winner of their survey? Just write down one piece of information. So that kept the other kids really busy while the people were talking. On an online version, I really couldn't think of anything that would fill that gap. And I'd like to hear about people who could fill that gap. I had kids on phones, in noisy backgrounds. I had kids on computers. I really couldn't find a consistent way to have them do peer feedback. And that would be a great, that's my question, right? And what I thought would be even more relevant would be if I could have them make videos instead of give speeches online. That seems like it fits our medium better, right? But again, they had such different technology, I didn't know what to recommend to them. So I taught a whole semester with it, but I do have more questions than answers, I think.
Yeah, Shirley, do you have an answer to this?
Maybe. So I was just going to say in response to Neil's comment, so I'm also teaching presentations, but I'm not teaching a presentation course. So it's just a component of a much bigger course, which means that I have a very limited amount of time to do it. So with my first year students, they only do 2 presentations over the year, one at the end of the first semester and one at the beginning of the second semester. Well, sorry, halfway through the second semester. And so the very first presentation I start them with is audio only. So the 2 skills that they're taught are the structure of a presentation and voice. And I have a very specific and quite detailed rubric that I use, which I show to them near the beginning of the course, and I go through previous courses students' presentation with it and go through the rubric and get everybody to grade it according to the rubric, and we all compare our grades and see how that, you know, how they compare. And then in the second semester, and also part of the component of the grade in the rubric is teamwork. So they're actually working in a team, they're not doing individual presentations. And the other thing that I have them do is I have them research in their own language, because they're doing topics that are relatively sophisticated and they don't have the English skills to actually be reading anything in English. And I have found in the past that when they research in English, they just sort of take great slabs of somebody else's writing and try to memorize it, neither of which skill I want them to do. So I have them research in Japanese and then reproduce in English, which works reasonably well. I find that the lower the level the student, the more likely they are to grab someone else's English, not like a classmate's, but like just grab some English that they read off Wikipedia or something that they're not supposed to be using anyway, and just try to reproduce or to memorize that. And with regard to peer feedback, so what I would normally do in a regular classroom is I have 2 presentation days. Usually I have 8 groups of presenters, 3 to 4 in each group. So on the day 1, 4 groups present, and the other 4 groups are the audience for each of the 4 presenting groups. I have them all presenting at the same time. So the classroom is just a huge cacophony of sound. But the reason I have them I used to have them do it individually, but I feel like it's too much of a waste of time in terms of too many people are sitting around, and especially if they're doing presentations on the same day, all they're doing is thinking about their own presentation. They're not listening to what's happening. So they all do their presentations simultaneously. The group that's listening to, say, presentation group 1, so these students are not doing a presentation on this day, they're going to do it on day 2. And they have a little handout, a feedback handout that's worth 5% of their grade that they need to complete. So they have to identify some points that were in the presentation. They have to then point out what was 2 things that were good to something that could have been done better. And lastly, they can actually make a comment to the group in Japanese. The rest they should do in English. And
were you doing that online? Was that how you did it online this past semester?
No, that's what I would do in a regular classroom. So what I did this semester is, I can't remember, it was Neil or Craig who said earlier that he had his students do a recording and then also do their presentation live in the Zoom classroom, maybe Craig, I think. So I had my students do that as well. They had to prepare a presentation and submit it to me as an MP4 file. And then in class, I had them do it in the big main room. They weren't in breakout rooms or anything. And the other students, everyone had to ask a question. And Normally I would grade that, but this time the logistics kind of got beyond me because I was cramming a little bit. But I think I will sort it out a bit better next semester. So they had to do their presentation live, and I had them on a, I've got a pretty big screen, so I can fit about 20 students on my screen. I shared my screen so that students, even the ones who are on a key tie, could actually see everyone in the group. And then the other students had to ask questions of the presenters, and then the presenters had to answer.
Cool. Keep things flowing. I see you here, Neil, but Craig had a hand up for a while. Craig, yeah, let's see.
Just to follow up and I guess answer Bill's question, what I did is I actually created a handout for students that I uploaded to Moodle for them to have for the presentations. And the handout basically, it was 3 parts. So the first part was to, they would just have to circle, was there an introduction page? Were there support pages? Did they have a concluding section? And then the second part was basically giving them 4 questions. And they were things like, what was the main point? Or what was the second support that they gave? Or what was the third support? So I had maybe 3 different, little sections for each presenter. So there would be 3 open for a student to listen to 3 different presentations. But the first one would be maybe what was the first supporting point? The next one would be maybe what was the third supporting point? So it was slightly randomized, and the idea of doing that was to give the others something to do, but also to check their comprehension. And the idea was if they couldn't answer one of the questions, that was the question that needed to be asked to the student, to the presenters. So in a sense, it created this communication, but it also, it was structured enough to where it was done quickly. So it wasn't someone trying to think about what to ask. So it was just very quickly. And the information I gave to presenters beforehand was that the idea is that when you present, your audience is able to understand what you are presenting. And so hopefully that would limit some of the time for questions as well. And also for the reflection, that paper was, students had to submit to me as a way of reflecting on the other's presentation. And then for their own presentation for homework, they had to make a FlipGrid video reflection of their own presentation. So it was a 2-part reflection. And that worked very well. And with FlipGrid, it was quite easy. So they could do that a lot.
That's the word I was looking for. You did this on FlipGrid.
I did their reflection on their own video, their own presentation was on FlipGrid. And the reflection on the other students was basically the handout, just because of time and the situation that we're in. But I would have liked them to also go back and give a comment on FlipGrid to other students' videos, which I did weekly, I guess similar to what Jose mentioned, and he shared with his student. I would give basically a FlipGrid video assignment every week. So a student would have to make a 1 to 2 minute video reflection. And then in class, I would give the class about 10 minutes and put them in breakout rooms. So they would watch the FlipGrid videos of their breakout room members and then leave a 30-second comment. So there was a lot of, I used FlipGrid quite a bit. Maybe each student made 30 to 40 videos on FlipGrid because they were reflecting as well as making their own videos. But reflecting on FlipGrid was very useful, especially throughout the semester the way things are right now, and there's no real interaction.
That's cool.
Yeah, sorry to ramble on a bit.
Not at all. No, that's great. And Jose, you want to add to that?
Your stuff, Craig, sounds really, really good. I got to go, but I just noticed you're on Bluetooth earpieces with a microphone. Okay, I don't know if anyone's ever told you, but are you on a Mac?
Yeah.
Okay, Bluetooth earpieces on a Mac create really noisy audio for the microphone. And I don't know if you can hear yourself, but you sound really patchy. You sound kind of like this when you're speaking. So you might want to check out, even Apple's own earpods themselves sound like crap. They sound fantastic on mobile devices. But, oh, geez, I forgot I took off my microphone. They sound fantastic on mobile devices, but they sound like utter crap on their Macs for now. You might want to check that out. Record yourself, hear how it sounds, because this is something that I talk about with my other sessions, that you have to make this easy for the kids. You have to not give them any reasons to dislike whatever the class is. And I'm not ragging on you, dude. It was great ideas, but your audio, if I was a student, I'd be thinking, oh man, okay, he's a good teacher, but I'm going to have to put up with that again. So just record yourself and listen to those, and maybe get like a proper wired mic. These are great, you know. I'll be talking about these at the sessions, actually. But just thought I'd be the bad guy and tell you that. I'm pretty sure everybody else is hearing it too.
Yeah, Craig, check out the video we're making of this. This will be uploaded probably this afternoon.
Yeah.
You'll be able to hear it. Yeah, you'll be able to hear it, exactly. I mean, you're I can understand you, but it is crackly. All right, 30 minutes to go, I reckon. Neil has a hand. Yeah, Neil, want to jump in?
Well, no, I was going to, you know, kind of go over a couple of the same points as two previous speakers in answers to Bill's question. But, you know, one thing that occurs to me is that during this kind of like presentation class, everything doesn't need to be live. You can take a hybrid approach where you have, you know, students giving reflective comments however is convenient to you, whether that be FlipGrid or whatever. The other thing that I just wanted to say was that one thing that I remember in my experience of teaching presentation is I always used to do what Shirley did and say, oh, you have to ask a question. And I'd be constantly pestering the students to ask a question. And it was so boring for me. And then one day I had the idea, ask a question or make a comment. I changed what I was saying, and that really, really made a difference. So that simple instruction, going from ask a question to ask a question or make a comment, really, really made the whole thing much easier for me. So comments, reflective comments are good for students, it seems. I'm done.
Shirley, did you want to say something? No, okay. Right. Anybody else? Any people we haven't heard from yet? Either want to comment or even bring up a new topic. We talk about presentations a lot, and I'm going to follow up personally with Jose as well. But there's Paul. Okay, Paul, please, there's a hand.
Just a quick remark on comments. When I was doing presentations with groups, either in class or through their blog posts and embedding presentations, I gave them a 5-point guidance sheet, I guess you'd call it, that included praise was the first part, PQRS questions. They had to praise something in the presentation, ask a question, reflect from their own point of view. And I don't remember what the other, PQRS, something like that. They had several different functions that they had to accomplish in their comments on the blog posts. So that gave them a little bit of guidance and a little bit of freedom for their responses to one another in an asynchronous mode.
Yeah, I have a similar feedback thing for my writing class, which I this semester I didn't get to that until a little later in the semester because it was all confused. But so I just had them writing an essay every 2 weeks. And then when we got the feedback thing, they really responded to that positively. They like to do that. They like to read each, I tell them it's good for you to read other people's writing and reflect on, how you compare if you want it to be like that. But yeah, I'm liking these ideas for presentations. I've got a speaking class coming up that I haven't really prepared much for. I've got an open, it's do whatever I want. And I would like to involve presentations. There's some really great ideas. All right, anybody want to start a new topic? Neil is waving frantically. Maybe he doesn't want to start. You got more to say. Go ahead now.
No, I want to start a new topic, and I'm going to be the worst Dumbo that you're all going to go, oh no, what stupid question is that? But it's really been the thing that's been on my mind the whole time for the whole semester. I have to understand that I'm working under very severe restrictions applied from the universities that I work for, both of them. No Zoom, basically, or it's on your own liability if something bad happens. We're not allowed to use anything that requires students to register with an external online system, no Facebook, no Google Classrooms or anything like that. Basically, the security requirement boils down to everything has to go through the university server and nothing else is okay. And so I've been using Zoom to some extent as a voluntary alternative because that's what the rules tell me I should do. But one thing that I'm worried about when I'm doing Zoom is that I'm not really giving the students enough structure. I think that they need to have a worksheet of some kind that they can work on collaboratively. And so I don't really have a good idea about what system I should use to make worksheets that two or three students can work on collaboratively in a breakout room and then keep and take it back with them into a main room and have every group working on collaboratively on the same sheet but separately. So can anybody give me some advice about that?
Jane's hand just shot right up. Please, Jane.
I teach dental research and dental education at Kyushu University, and I upload onto Moodle a student's version of my PowerPoint slides. And in class, I use my version. My version of the slides has lots of prompts, and students also, they download a worksheet from Moodle. And after I've done a little bit of review from the previous week, just to check we're going on, we're actually reading research papers. So the topic is probably quite different from what most people are doing, but I think you can adapt it to your needs. After I've reviewed the previous week and put up on vocabulary, then I'll put them into breakout rooms and they'll just discuss the topic. Usually they do it in English, they do a good job. Then I introduce a bit of new stuff and they're throwing new vocabulary into the chat because I want them to contribute to the discussion. During the Zoom meeting, unfortunately, it was a rule all students had no video to try to limit the data because students had 4 lectures a day, full on 90-minute lectures. I did 60 minutes, so they weren't unfortunately allowed to use video, but some of them did in the breakout rooms, and I give them the worksheet they download, but we go through it step by step. Give them maybe 5 minutes individually if they need to go online to search for information, use a dictionary, then just put them into breakout rooms and they pretty much sort it out for themselves. Then after class, they'd often answer some of the information in a Moodle quiz so that I can follow what they're doing. And some of the breakout room discussions were excellent. Sometimes I had to go in and spend more time with some groups to support, but I think a worksheet that you go through step by step, similar to what you'd find in a textbook, build up vocabulary, get ideas, do brainstorming, and then gradually introduce the topic, but put them into breakout rooms at each stage, and the students will help each other out, and the stronger students will just run with it. It worked out really well, and I've had positive feedback from the students. It also helps that I introduced dentistry in COVID-19, so they know what to do when they're in the hospitals for their clinical training now. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to hear more ideas though. Thank you.
Neil, go ahead. I think I can predict what your question is, but I want to see if I'm right.
So the point here is to take a worksheet, the students take a worksheet with them into the breakout room, and you're saying, okay, put it on Moodle and have them download it beforehand. But how does that work with smartphones? If the student is only using a smartphone, this is the key point for me.
That's what I was wondering too, because they just don't have printers. That's something I assumed stupidly at the beginning of the semester. It's like, okay, just print this out and then do this. It's like,
not a chance.
Yeah, right.
They can't look at two things at the same time on most smartphones.
If I can just jump in again, please. If you put stuff in advance, they can go to a convenience store and print stuff out. That works brilliantly.
Yeah, Shirley's nodding her head there emphatically too.
I mean,
solution.
I was teaching an international political economy class, and those were highly motivated students, and they would do just about anything I asked them, but that doesn't necessarily go with economics, you know, V11E or something.
Tim has a hand up. Tim, do you want to do that?
I was just going to ask Neil, you're not allowed to use Google Docs, just send a link to share like in a breakout room.
I'm not familiar with Google Docs, but what I feel is my understanding is that if I send a link to the students to share in a breakout room, all of the students in all breakout rooms will be working on the same document.
No. PDF, Bill, go ahead.
Bill, I want to hear your comment.
What you could do is, while you were talking, I made an example one. I'll put it in the chat, a link to it in the chat. So I've seen other presenters do this, and I thought this was a great idea. They just put like group 1, group 2, group 3, and you can copy paste your same questions for each group, but the kids in the group just go to where their group is, and they type in that area. And the other groups are typing in other areas.
I saw that solution online somewhere. I've been looking into it, obviously. If you've got, 13 groups in your class, I mean, it just seemed a little bit kind of difficult to explain to the students. Is that the best solution?
Well, it's the quickest. The other one is have them have in my classes, my students have their own. I use Google Classroom, so I can make one for each individual student, and they just collaborate and put the same information on their individual document.
Our university prohibits that.
Yeah, so you'd have to make like 5 separate documents and 5 separate links and give each link to each group.
I can't even get my head around that.
Yes, it's a lot of work.
Thank you.
I can't believe what you're saying there about you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do. Oh man, what do they?
Yeah,
what do they have to do? Like,
your place is fairly restrictive. Our place is even more so. The next step, which I hope I don't want to be Mr. Downer here, but the next step appears to be that the Education Ministry are now talking about hybrid education, where some lessons will be online and some will be face-to-face. At our institution, they're instituting face-to-face for certain courses starting next semester, academic skills courses. And what that means is because they don't have Wi-Fi in the university, everybody has to do hybrid lessons that can be taken either on demand or live. Forget Zoom. That's what they're asking us to do. Seriously.
Oh, yeah, Shirley, I can see Shirley's face. Yeah.
Shirley, you're muted.
Oh, she's muted because I'm standing on the screen. Yeah, the OTJ group on Facebook, you read some horror stories of what universities are doing around. And every day I look at that thing and I go, don't say that about your university by name, my God. But yeah, you read some crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that was me telling you some bad news there that I'm kind of aware of, that I think that's going to happen to everybody, to be honest with you. It's policy. That's the only way that they can keep the students paying the school fees when it comes down to it, for the rubbish they're receiving. We have stories of teachers, they put a link up on their Moodle and it just goes nowhere. That's their effort for making their class. You know. They just
I've heard from students some just terrible things that teachers are. I reflected last week after our Zoom thing, and I talked to my wife about it. It's like, compared to what I'm hearing from students about, I mean, frankly, the astonishing laziness of some teachers. It's like what we're doing here as, as English teachers, trying to make our classes better and trying to make them more engaging. It's like we are way ahead of a lot of teachers, right? Just by the simple effort of trying to make things better for our students. There are some I've heard, some stories about teachers who have what you would call a kind of get away with it mentality. It's like just the minimum. So, pat on the back for everybody for even being here, right? We're ahead. Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in? Oh, well, it's nearly 12. Any other final tip, hint? I haven't yet. Like I want to just show something that sort of by which I survived. I noticed early that how to do this in a coherent way. Perhaps no, I'll go the other way. The thing I talked about yesterday in our FlipGrid meeting, and then I posted on OTJ and I got a lot of surprising amount of sort of thumbs and good comments for this. But a guy wrote on OTJ yesterday on Facebook, he sort of, it was a throw his hand up moment. It's like, right, I'm sick of these students telling me, surprise, surprise, I can't believe I failed. He said, that's it, I'm just going to share my Excel grading sheet and post online so they can all see it all the way through. And Bill jumped in and said, yeah, dude, you're going to get fired if you do that for privacy reasons, what have you. And I jumped in and said, well, look, what I did.
I mentioned you too. I didn't, not by name, but.
How do you mean?
I mentioned your thing that you're going to talk about. I said, nickname.
Oh, right. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, my nickname. Yeah. This is an idea I came up with in about week 3 or 4 when I realized, students need to know scores, they need to know updates, and especially because my score, I mean, generally I do this anyway, but, little by little by little. I don't wait till week 9 and give them 50% and then wait till week 15 and give them another 50. It's, a gradual thing. So they need to have some feedback. So I come up with the idea of, I don't have them put it away, but usually in the classroom, they would have a card, a name card, with my little 3-digit code in there that helps me organize them into classes. And I often give them score feedback. Here's a little code up there in the corner that you never even pay attention to. It's a 3-digit number. Put it up on the screen and they can see their scores. Can't do that this time. I just asked them, and I made a video in super simple English, and with examples, graphic examples of choose a code name. I want to show your scores online. I can't do that with your name or student number for privacy, obviously. So why don't you choose a code name? Here's a Google form. Tell me your name. Tell me your student number. Give me a name. Something, anything, whatever you want, something that you will recognize as you when I show your scores online. And I'll just show you my screen here. If I show you Google Chrome, there it is, share. Here's an example. Here's my Monday 3 class, and there's no privacy concerns here at all. I was updating this every week. You can see up here, I put the time to the minute of when I updated it so they would know. But there's their code names. They mean nothing to me. They mean nothing to anybody else, right? So this way I was able to give them up to the week score update, right? Of every single assessment item. And this class happened to be a sort of repetitive pattern of do the Quizlet, come to WebEx, do the Google quiz. The blue ones here, you can do either or, but just across the semester, and this grew up, week to week to week, and their score now grew up week to week to week. What I do is keep a, those are in random order, exactly. I put them in random order of or alphabetical order of their code name. On my actual score sheet, which is a numbers spreadsheet, I don't use Excel, I use numbers, You know, on the left-hand column, the sort of header rows, they've got their student number, their name, and their code name, basically. So I sort the spreadsheet according to either their name, their student number, or this. When it came to doing this, all I had to do was just sort by code name. So it goes into that alphabetical thing. Copy that column, paste it on there, copy the whole thing across, and paste. Like, it was 2 pastes, and that was it. And I would do that every week, and it's something really simple. And then it, you know, ostensibly got me off the hook. It was like, there, I told you. What I'm going to do different next semester, and that was enough, I thought, and it was just about enough. But what I'm going to do next semester is have that, and I'm going to have what I haven't quite formulated perfectly yet, but I'm going to have what I'm going to call digital attendance. I'm going to take attendance, and what that means is it's a Google form. It's like, and they're going to have to fill it out every week, even for asynchronous classes. It has to be filled out either on the day of the class or I'll give you maybe 2 or 3 days extra. You've got to check in every week. You've got to check in at least to check your score. So it's going to be, what's your name, what's your student number, what's your score? Go and look at it and type it in so you know, and then I know that you know. Right, because that's what comes back to us at the end, and that's what takes all that time in week 13, 14, 15, right? Is emailing students, why have I only got 44 points when everyone else has got 80? It's like, well, look at it, y'all. Yeah, did you notice how, you know, Quizlet is worth 5 points every week, but every week you've got 1 point and everyone else is getting 5, right? This is why I'm showing you this. Sorrel, did you just type a comment? I saw it come up in this bit. Where would they do that? Sorry, I'll just go along a couple of things here. Moodle, no. Well, look, I use Moodle, but only as a launch pad to get me to things that I'm familiar with. I use Moodle as a website. That's it. So this is all in Google Docs. I post the link every single week. It's one of my Moodle items. And so that's just on my Google Drive. And I had one for each class. One guy on the spreadsheet, on the Facebook group this morning as a reply to my comment yesterday said, yeah, he thinks he'll do the same, but perhaps have a grand list of, I mean, this class here that I just showed you, I'm doing 5 of those classes next semester. So I could just simply have a grand list of every class so that no students could sort of pick out who must be who according to attendance patterns or something like that. But I think that's definitely something I got right this semester. I figured it out in about week 4 and did that. I don't want to ramble too much, but any comments, or if anyone come up with any other ways of getting sort of score feedback to students? Jump in.
Excuse me, yeah. I've been using Moodle Gradebook and it's awful. So the students apparently don't get it at all. So looking for something else.
Right. So I'll just type a question that sounds great, but doesn't it take time? Well, not really, because I'm updating that. No, that's right. I'm updating that spreadsheet every time, my numbered spreadsheet. And as I said, I just select that class, sort by alphabetically, sort by not their name, not their student number, but sort by their code name. Select it, paste it, select all their grades, paste it, and it's done. No, not. I mean, it took a little time to set up, perhaps because I had 12 classes I did that for, but week to week, no, not a stretch at all. Absolutely a good investment.
Steve, you could even theoretically have just one big grade sheet. If the kids are having the same quizzes, yeah, in the same class, you could combine classes together, and that makes it even more difficult for
more anonymous
to figure out who's who.
Yeah, yeah, and they can find their name. That was one of the things I did. And in fact, my week 1 this semester this coming semester is not dissimilar to what I did last time, but basically it's going to be, right, register for Quizlet, here's how you do that, and here's the Google form for you to tell me your Quizlet name, because I had to get that onto my spreadsheet. That's how we do that. Here's how we choose a code name, and here's why. It's going to be just a couple of videos. It might take them 90 minutes, but super clear, super slow. Register for Quizlet, tell me your username. Choose a code name and tell me that, and here's why. A couple other things I'll need them to kind of register for, but week 1 will be, register for everything. Did you do it all? Good, we're ready to go, we're all set. I can spend that week dealing with questions, but not many came in. If you do the videos slowly enough and with visual examples that tend to work for me. Shirley, what about an overall score? Paul, no, that's in the left column. Sorry, I'll just bring it up again. That left column was automatically calculated. Share that again. There it is. Yeah, so there's their thing, their score now. And that was obviously going up and up and up each week. But if you took a student, like say, well, here's Disney 1, 2, 3, 1, and I wouldn't have a clue who that is. But you can see here oh, okay, I should have frozen those columns, those rows at the top. Oh, no, you can see the WebEx nothing, the following WebEx nothing, the following WebEx nothing, the following, yeah. So the student just stopped coming. But then if we go to the end of the semester, hey, guess what? Towards the end of such and such, week 10, they started to come back. Look at that, Disney started turning up in week 10. Ends up with 41. There's no way in the world that I need to adjust that person's score because, oh, I didn't know. It's like, yo, I was telling you from week 5, right? That kind of thing. I'm just interested in covering that kind of stuff and making it all transparent. Sort by overall score, that would be easy as well. Yeah, and sometimes in fact, I did often, once or twice, make a graph, a visual graph of their scores. Here's how your scores, look compared to everybody else's. Grade book, yeah, okay. No, it didn't take a real lot of time. Random order of grades and real order. Anyone want to jump in? We're getting to the end of our thing. Shirley, yeah, go ahead.
Really just wanted to ask the question of how it worked for you having students compare themselves with other students rather than just monitoring their grades individually.
Well, I wanted them to know why. Like if they have a low score there, that student's got 41, for example, and that's good for them to know that everybody else has got 70 right now, right? Just that. I mean, these are random names. There's no way to know. But I put that there.
I'm not questioning I'm comparing myself with Fred, my mate, or whatever. I'm just, I mean, if they look at their grade individually and they see they've got 0 for non-attendance for WebEx, then surely they can work out for themselves that the reason they've got 40 is because you've assigned that X value and they've got 0 for that value. Yeah. I'm just curious about how it worked, whether or not there was any advantage to having them compare themselves with other students, or whether or not you had students kind of feeling like, wow, I'm the dumbest kid in the class because everybody else is smarter than me, even though I actually tried. Because,
well,
I mean,
that's a good question. That it was just simply show up at WebEx, get 3 points. It was that kind of thing. It wasn't, it was no kind of intelligence test.
Isn't it just expediency, right? I mean, it's very easy to show all the scores. It's very difficult to have someone see only their own scores.
That was my second point. I don't know how I would deliver sort of that detailed level of score feedback to every individual.
Right, because I am using Moodle Gradebook and students can just see their individual scores. So, yeah. So you can't actually do that using the Excel file. You'd have to like cut and paste each individual line. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Basically, I mean, yes, you're right. Yeah, one of my writing classes, that was more a sort of merit-based score, but.
I mean, I'm not trying to ask a dick question. I'm genuinely curious whether or not there was actually some advantage to having them see not so much the things that are just you were here or you were not here, but actual, like test results or their little Quizlet things or whatever they are that, okay, well, I'm always scoring lower than another person, not a specific person.
I mean, I went to efforts to be friendly in videos and, encouraging in things and I don't think they would, maybe for that reason, that, okay, you're getting a low score consistently, but hey, come and ask me. I'm at the help desk every week, come and ask me. Yeah, that kind of thing. So it was never going to be a bad, bad mood sort of punishing sort of vibe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Anyway, that's something I got right that I'm happy to share. Anybody else want to wrap it up? one final topic.
Oh, I'd like to make an announcement
Yeah, in there.
for JALT. JALT 2020 is going to be online, and we will be doing a lot of Zoom presentations, and we need Zoom hosts. So if you'd like to sign up to be a Zoom host, bit.ly J20ZM JALT 20 Zoom. Please sign up. I'll put that link in the chat. That's going to be in November.
And for Fukuoka JALT, we're going to do a regular presentation on the 29th, right? Saturday night. We're going to we have a regular, not a chit chat like this, but a presentation from a presenter about Kakeni grants and how to get successful grant applications going. That's going to be on the 29th. We're emailing around about that right now, but probably from 6:30 on the 20. Was it 28th or 29th? I'd have to look up there on my calendar. But there'll be an email about that possibly even today.
It's on a Saturday, right?
Yeah, it's a Saturday night, the 29th.
29th.
Yep, 29th. Yeah. All right, shall we wrap it up there? Looks like we will. Yep. Okay. Good. I think we will. So we will not do this next week because there's going to be plenty of that going on for OTJ on the Facebook group.
Save the chat.
Yes, I will save the chat. I won't forget that this week. And this video will be up probably this afternoon. I'll get onto that sooner. It took me a day yesterday, not last week because I had to this and that. But yeah, I'll get this video up today. All right. So perhaps we'll bump into each other at any OTJ thing next week, and then the following Saturday night. Thank you all for coming. That was good. We've got lots of different voices, more so than last week, I think. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. See you around. And